Hey, today's video is a Legion Remix gearing guide for Havoc Demon Hunter, though there's some stuff in here that's going to be useful regardless of the character that you do play, as I'll go over kind of how the gearing system does work as well as what you want to go on and into for Havoc DH. So, gearing is pretty simplistic in Legion Remix. To be entirely honest with you, gear comes with only 3 available stats. That is Critical Strike, Mastery, and Haste. And we want those in that order. You want to stack Critical Strike, every other stat would go into Mastery, and you could have a little bit of Haste, you're going to end up with some on your gear, but you probably wouldn't really want more than like 12 to 15%. Kind of a typical number for retail. You just want all crit and Mastery. The thing is, stats on Legion Remix do not DR. They are flat percent increases. So you can see on my gloves here, there's 17% critical strike. As the item level goes up, the scales up a little bit, and they can either be double rolled onto a single stat, or they can be split between 2 stats. That said, while you're gearing up, even though you want to prioritize critical strike, mastery, and haste, unless you want to keep a bunch of gear in your bags, you're typically going to just equip the highest item level. And the reason for that is because your gear, not the drops, but the things that you get out of the epic caches and the motes of a broken time, once you're max a level at level 80, those scale off of your weapon item level. And your weapon item level scales off of your item level. So it can only be about 6 item levels ahead of you. The reason this is important is, especially when it comes to jewelry, so rings, neck, and both your trinkets, these do not have secondaries on them. They have specific trait effects, and they basically can have a bunch of the traits from the Legion Remix artifact tree. Particularly, it can be any of the effects that are in row 1 or 2, except for this power here. For whatever reason, I guess because it plays directly into the artifact power itself, and it's a 1-pointer, this one cannot be used. But the other traits that pop up, including both choice notes here, will all appear. So with that, there is 2 specific traits that are incredibly far ahead that you want to run, and a third viable one. Now, the other part about those jewelry pieces is the effect doesn't scale off of item level. Your item level, or rather your agility, dictates how strong they are because it scales off of your attack power, but the actual effect itself, whether this was an item level 10 ring or an item level 620 ring like I have, if I get a rank 3 of volatile magics, which a purple will always be rank 3, it's going to be the same effect. The only thing that is different is going to be the amount of stamina. So you can see on this effect here, 571 ring has about 5,000 stamina, whereas 620 has 11,832. And up until I got these 2 rings, I was actually using item level 200 rings, which had maybe 100 stamina, basically nothing, and it's about the equivalent of if I were to unequip this. So you can see my health bar drops by about 500,000. It's pretty significant, it's about 3% of my health bar, but it's typically not make or break. And no matter what, the power is going to be more effective than item level actually matters. Item level's just for stamina, and you'll always get higher item level ones later. But the way that you play around with this is I don't replace all my jewelry as I get upgrades. Down in my bottom left bag here, I keep the highest item level in every slot. So I have a higher item level neck, but I'm not going to use it because the effect is significantly worse. But this increases my bag item level, which allows my weapons to go up. So you can see that I'm 625 equipped, 630 in bags, and my weapon, because of that, goes up to 636. When I get to about 633 in bags, this will go to 639 or 640, whatever it goes up to. And then my item drops will drop at that item level as well. And you kind of slow crawl your item level up. And pretty much anything you're doing can get you those drops. So I like the system. It's a lot of grinding. Personally, that's something I enjoy playing. Now, I'm doing the same thing for rings. I have a 627 ring here, just so it's higher item level than my brand of Callous Dominance, which is only 620. I have a pair of gloves in my bag here that are 3 item levels higher, but you can see the stats. It goes into crit haste instead of all crit, and frankly, my character just has way too much haste as is. So I'm starting to keep other pieces like this for small amounts because it's better than the agility gain. And then same with trinkets, 633 and 636. And until I get a higher item level of these specific traits, I'll not replace. So let me talk about a few things. So as I mentioned with stats, stacking crit over mastery over haste. You're going to keep getting gear as you go up, so it's not too big a deal. You can see a 43% crit, which is honestly on the very low end. 58% haste, which is way too much. I'd really like to at least swap these around. And I have 171% mastery. Now, mastery is not 1-to-1, so you can see that I have a piece that gives 17% mastery here. I'm not going to take this off and drop to 154%. I drop to 132.75 because it scales off of our mastery. So it scales really well, which means our personal mastery damage abilities, like anything that's chaos damage, scales particularly hard, and that's one of the reasons why Havoc Demon Hunter is so good in Remix. So for gear, it's really just equip highest item level, or at least keep them in your bags, and make sure you always maintain a high bag item level, and you can scrap anything else that is not increasing your bag item level. But at the end of the day, that's what matters for gearing your character, is your bag item level, and you need to keep increasing that. There are pieces on my character that I arguably should not be wearing, like these 623 pants. However, I got lazy up until the point where I'm at now, where now I'm starting to save pieces. The other thing that is on gear, at least for purple gear, is tertiary. So you can see there's a bit of speed on these, and this isn't going to be significant. If I take them off, I go from 174 to 170%. However, the avoidance is pretty significant, especially because the damage intake in, like, Mythic Plus at least, is so high. And the Leech can be good, but if you had a choice, you would just want pretty much all avoidance, because we already have Leech and move speed, and we don't need to worry about either of those on Havoc. But that's a side note, and that's something to kind of farm out when you get possibly to very end game. Okay, so the last thing to talk about with gearing, as I covered the stat priorities and the powers, I want to dive a little bit more into the powers, and I'm going to go into the artifact ability. So, on the artifact tree, everything before this line of 5 abilities, you just talented all these, and you just get them all. You're going to get all these first before you go into an ability row, at which point we go into Twisted Crusade. There is a secondary one that you can run. I haven't run it. I know that Tempest Wrath can be okay. However, I believe that Touch of Malice is simply the most busted power in the game, so getting the 3 extra points in that, plus Twisted Crusade and Fellspike are very strong, whereas Tempest Wrath is very good for AoE, a lot less so for single target. However, until today, you weren't really able to run this tree, because these 2 nodes give you the ability to move while casting. There was a bug for DH where we couldn't pick up our souls. That appears to be fixed now. It wasn't in any notes that I saw, but as of today, it's fixed. So you can actually have these traits on without it negatively impacting your character, luckily. So you could try to go through this if you just don't feel like playing Twisted Crusade, and you can swap everything around at any point. You could, for free, undo your changes, swap your points around, but you can only ever be talented into one of these at once, even though you can swap and get the whole row at any time. Now, that said, because Twisted Crusade and Fellspike are the best, this is what I'd recommend. You just go through this whole tree. There's no choice nodes, nothing to decide on. But the effects in here are the ones that our jewelry is enhancing. And these 3 traits are the strongest 3. Specifically, Touch of Malice is stronger than Terror from Below, and Terror from Below is stronger than Volatile Magics. Volatile Magics is pretty good, but it's nothing insane. It's something that's a little bit better for, like, our single target in particular, whereas Terror from Below can be very good in AoE scenarios, and Touch of Malice, or Fell Touched, is absolutely disgusting in AoE. In a scenario where you are dealing damage, it's basically all the damage your character does is then dealt as an AoE around the target. So when you're doing massive amounts of AoE, everything just AoEs each other and everything just basically explodes. It's a disgusting amount of quadratic damage, and it's something where you really notice it specifically on trash. Let me see if I can find a segment. And you can just see that it is an egregious amount of my damage. And I don't have this fully optimized. So what you want for gear, because you have 5 pieces. However, the rings and the trinkets are unique equipped, which means I can't run double volatile chaos talismans. You can only run one of these, and same thing with rings. You can't run 2 of the same kind of ring. So ideally, you'll have a touch of malice and a terror from below ring, and 1 of each for the trinkets, giving you 2 of each. And then for your neck, you want touch of malice. If you don't have that, volatile magics is pretty good as a backup, but these are what you really want to go for. And the way that the additional ranks work is it's just based on the quality. Green will give you 1 rank, blue gives you 2 ranks, and purple gives you 3 ranks. So regardless of item level, purple is just always going to win out. And there could be a couple other traits that you can run early, because it will take a while to, unless you get really lucky to get all these. But these are the 3 that you really want to go for. I believe Storm Surger is something that you can use and is pretty decent. Brewing Storm requires you to kind of stand still, but it could be played around. Light's Vengeance is okay at best. You don't really want to run it. Defensively, I don't think Arcane Aegis or Arcane Ward are actually good. Unfortunately, they're just kind of undertuned considering our health bar, where they maybe are a shield for 10% of your health when you get to max level, but they're pretty good at low levels. And High Mountain Fortitude gives you a shield based on your damage intake, but everything is too burst heavy, so there's a lot of traits that are just bad outright that you would never run. And then there's Souls of the Caw. This heals and does damage where it explodes. However, the AoE is very small, only 5 yards, which means it doesn't hit many targets. And this is unable to crit. And considering we abuse Know Your Enemy on Havoc, especially with this uncapped critical strike in this game mode, it's egregiously bad for us compared to the other options. So really, you just want to keep an eye out for these specific traits, and that's all you're going to run, is Touch of Malice first, Terror from Below second, Volatile Magics third. You get those 3, you're happy. So, that's everything for my gearing guide. Thank you for watching. I'm going to keep putting out some content for Legion Remix, and seeing how much people like it, and if you have anything to add in the comments below, or if you think I missed anything, just let me know. And if you are interested in keeping up to date with Havoc Demon Hunter or Legion Remix for Havoc, you could leave a follow on my channel. Additionally, if you want to catch me live, you can catch me live most days of the week at twitch.tv/Shotterek. Maybe I'll see you there. Until the next time, have a good one.